Be me, 35 architect. Not the kind you see in movies with a black turtleneck, sketching on a napkin and changing the world. My work is mostly sustainable design. I try to make buildings that are functional, efficient, and don't look like an alien spaceship landed in a suburb. It pays well, very well. But I don't live like it. My car is a reliable sedan that's a few years old. My apartment is clean, minimalist, and comfortable, not a penthouse shrine to consumerism. I value things that are built to last, things with substance. This philosophy applies to my work, my possessions, and my relationships. As you can imagine, this makes modern dating a bit of a minefield. I'd been single for a while, maybe close to a year. Not actively looking, just enjoying the peace after a previous relationship that ended because we just wanted different things. She wanted the big house, the fancy parties, the life that looks good on social media. I wanted a partner. So I was taking a break. Then a friend of mine reaches out. Let's call her my well-meaning friend. We've known each other since college. She's a good person, but she works in marketing and sometimes gets a bit too swept up in the world of branding and optics. She called me up sometime last spring. I think it was a Tuesday. She was excited. Too excited. Told me she'd met the perfect woman for me. My internal alarms started going off immediately. Perfect is a word people use when they're trying to sell you something. I asked her what this person was like. The description was a waterfall of buzzwords. She's a total jock girl boss. She's incredibly ambitious. She's building her own empire. The friend mentioned that this woman was a PR consultant for luxury brands. Of course she was. My friend insisted that she was also strong and independent and knows her worth. That last phrase always gets me. It never just means self-respect. It's almost always code for has expensive expectations. I tried to politely decline. I told my friend I wasn't really in the headspace for dating. She wouldn't take no for an answer. She said I was being too cynical, that I needed to get out there. She said this woman was different, that she was the real deal. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let my friend pass along my number. What's the worst that could happen? It's one dinner, one evening. A day or so later, I get a text. It was her. The message was polite, professional, and to the point. Almost like an email scheduling a business meeting. She introduced herself and said our friend had spoken highly of me. I replied with something equally generic. We texted back and forth a bit to set up a date. I suggested a place I knew. A quiet, upscale Italian restaurant with amazing food and a relaxed atmosphere. A place where you can actually have a conversation. She replied almost instantly. That's a sweet idea, but I know this new place that's getting incredible buzz. The ambiance is everything. Let's go there instead. I'll make a reservation for Friday. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a directive. Red flag number 1. She immediately took control and dismissed my choice. I looked up the restaurant she named. The website was all style, no substance. Photos of dramatic, dark interiors. Pictures of cocktails with smoke coming out of them. Images of tiny, artfully arranged portions of food. The prices were astronomical, not just expensive, but absurdly so. You weren't paying for food, you were paying for the right to post a photo from that location. I thought about pushing back, suggesting we meet for a simple drink instead. But then I figured, why start an argument before we've even met? Maybe I'm being the cynical one. Maybe she just really likes this place. I agreed. One night? How bad could it be? Friday comes around. I finish up at the office, head home, shower, and put on something decent. A nice button-down shirt, good trousers, leather shoes. Smart, casual. I drive to the restaurant, which is in the trendiest, most obnoxious part of the city. Valet parking is the only option, naturally. I walk in, and the place is exactly as I expected. It's dark, loud, and filled with people who are more interested in being seen than in enjoying a meal. Everyone looks like they're on a photo shoot. I give her name at the hostess stand, and they tell me she's already been seated. I'm led through the maze of tables to a small booth in the corner, and there she is. She looks exactly like her photos, which is to say she looks like a professional advertisement. Everything is perfect. Hair, makeup, a designer dress that probably cost more than my first car. It's an impressive display, but it feels like a costume. A uniform for the role she's playing tonight. I say hello, and she gives me a polished, media-trained smile. The first few minutes are standard first-date small talk. The weather, the traffic, how crazy work has been. But even this feels rehearsed. Her answers are generic. She doesn't share personal anecdotes. She delivers talking points. The waiter, a guy who looks profoundly bored with his life, comes over to take our drink order. I open the drinks menu, a tome bound in heavy leather. I was about to suggest a bottle of red wine, something reasonable. Before I can speak, she closes her menu and looks at the waiter. She tells him we'll start with a bottle of Krug champagne. I know Krug. It's one of the most expensive champagnes you can buy. A bottle here would be hundreds of dollars. She didn't ask me. She didn't consult me. She just ordered it. She must have seen the flicker of surprise on my face because she turned to me with that same polished smile. She explained that champagne is a non-negotiable for a first date, that it sets a celebratory tone and shows that both people are invested in making the evening special. She used the word invested, like we were closing a business deal. Red flag number 2, a big, sparkling, expensive one. The waiter nods and vanishes. I decide not to say anything. At this point, I'm shifting from potential date mode to social anthropologist mode. I'm just here to observe. The conversation, if you can call it that, begins. It quickly becomes clear that she isn't interested in getting to know me. She's interested in vetting me. The questions start, disguised as casual curiosity. So, architecture, that's fascinating. You must work on some big projects downtown. A question about the scale and budget of my work. It must be tough finding parking in the city. What do you drive? A question about my car. Do you travel much? I just got back from a week in St. Bart's. It's essential to recharge. A question about my disposable income and lifestyle. I give her vague, non-committal answers. I talk about my work in terms of design philosophy, not client budgets. I tell her my car gets me from point A to point B. I mention my last trip was a hiking trip in a national park. Each of my answers is met with a slight, almost imperceptible frown. It's like I'm giving the wrong responses on a test. She quickly seems to realize that this direct line of questioning isn't working, so she changes tactics. She starts talking about herself, and she talks and talks and talks. For the next hour, I am treated to a comprehensive presentation on her personal brand. That's the term she uses, over and over. My personal brand. She explains that her entire life is a carefully curated experience. The clothes she wears, the places she eats, the people she associates with. It's all part of a strategic plan to build her brand. She talks about leveraging social capital and calculating the ROI of relationships. She tells me her social media isn't just for fun. It's a full-time commitment to brand management. I'm just sitting there, nodding along, sipping on a glass of champagne that costs more than my monthly electricity bill. I'm trying to find the person underneath the press release, but I'm not sure there is one. I make an attempt to connect on a human level. I wait for a pause in her monologue and try to steer the conversation toward something real. I ask her what she's passionate about, outside of her career and her brand. Any hobbies? Books she's read? Movies she's enjoyed? She looks at me with a blank expression, as if the question is in a foreign language. She says her hobby is networking, and the last book she read was some guru's guide to disruptive marketing. It's hopeless. The waiter comes back to take our food order. Again, she takes the lead. She doesn't even look at the menu. She tells the waiter we'll both be having the chef's tasting menu. The tasting menu is, of course, the most expensive item available. It's a multi-course spectacle designed to impress. She informs me, not asks me, that it's the only way to truly appreciate the chef's vision. At this point, I've completely checked out. This isn't a date. It's a performance, and I'm the unwilling audience and sole financial backer. I just nod. Sounds great. My compliance seems to please her. She probably thinks I'm properly impressed. The next part of the evening is a blur of tiny, elaborate dishes being brought to the table. Before we eat each course, she has to take at least a dozen photos of it from different angles. She spends several minutes editing the photos on her phone, choosing the right filter, crafting the perfect caption. The food is cold by the time she's done. The monologue continues between courses. She tells me about her last relationship. She describes her ex not as a person she loved, but as a brand mismatch. She says he lacked ambition, and his personal growth trajectory had plateaued. According to her, he just couldn't keep up with her meteoric rise. The final straw, she explains, was when he suggested they spend a weekend camping instead of attending a gallery opening where she could network with high-value individuals. She says this with a straight face, as if it's the most reasonable explanation in the world. She then tells me that he accused her of being transactional and only caring about status. She lets out a small, bitter laugh. She says he was just intimidated, that his ego was too fragile to handle a strong, successful woman. She then looks me right in the eye and mentions something about toxic masculinity, how it makes men feel threatened by a woman's power, so they try to tear her down. She's expecting me to nod in agreement, to join her in condemning this pathetic ex-boyfriend. I just take a sip of water. I don't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. My silence seems to unnerve her for a moment, but she quickly recovers and launches into another story about a luxury brand party she attended. I spend the rest of the meal in a state of quiet resignation. I'm counting the minutes until I can politely end the evening and go home. I'm already composing the text message to my friend in my head. A very polite but very firm message telling her to lose my number if she ever tries to set me up again. Finally, the parade of tiny dishes is over. The dessert plates are cleared. We've been here for nearly 3 hours. She looks pleased with herself. She thinks the evening was a roaring success. In her mind, she has successfully demonstrated her high value, her sophisticated taste, and her elite lifestyle. She believes she has found a man who is willing and able to finance it. She leans back in her seat, takes out her phone again, and begins scrolling through her photo gallery, probably admiring the pictures of the food she barely ate. A quiet moment hangs in the air. The final act is about to begin. I catch the waiter's eye and make the universal gesture for the check. He nods. I know what's coming. I've been preparing for this moment for the past 2 hours. My decision was made the moment she ordered that bottle of champagne without asking. Everything since then has just been confirmation. The waiter returns with a small black leather folder. He places it precisely in the center of the table, equidistant from both of us. A neutral act, yet it feels loaded with significance. She doesn't even look up from her phone. Her focus on the screen becomes incredibly intense. She's completely absorbed. It's a deliberate, calculated performance of disinterest. The unspoken message is clear. This is your responsibility. This is the man's job. Handle it. I can feel the eyes of the other diners on us, the hum of the restaurant, the weight of her expectation. This is the final test, the grand finale of the audition. Pass, and I get the privilege of funding her curated lifestyle. Fail, and I'm just another man with a fragile ego, intimidated by her success. I sit there for a solid 30 seconds, just watching her. She doesn't flinch. She's committed to the role. I take a slow, deep breath. The anthropologist in me is fascinated. The man in me is just tired. Tired of the games, the tests, the expectations. I reach for the leather folder. Out of the corner of my eye, I see her relax. A tiny, almost imperceptible softening of her shoulders. She thinks she's won. I open the folder. The bill is printed on thick, creamy paper, as if its quality is supposed to soften the blow of the number at the bottom. Total, $699. I look at the number. Then I look at her, still laser-focused on her phone, feigning ignorance with an almost theatrical intensity. A part of me is almost impressed by her commitment to the act. I pull my wallet out of my jacket pocket. It's a simple leather bifold worn from years of use. I take out my credit card, a plain no-frills card from my bank. I place it on the table next to the bill folder. She sees the motion. A tiny, triumphant smile plays on her lips, but she doesn't look up. She's won. The provider has provided. The test has been passed. I raise my hand slightly, just enough to catch the waiter's attention. He's by our table in an instant. His expression as neutral as ever. I slide the folder and my card toward him, and then I speak. My voice is calm, quiet, not much louder than a conversational tone. We'll be splitting this, please, right down the middle. The world seems to stop for a second. The waiter freezes, his hand hovering over the folder. He glances from me to her, suddenly caught in the crossfire. Her head snaps up from her phone. Her eyes are wide. The polished, smiling mask is gone. For the first time all night, I'm seeing a real expression. It's pure, unadulterated shock. She looks at me as if I had just started speaking in tongues. "Excuse me?" she says, her voice tight. "What did you just say?" I look her directly in the eye. My expression is neutral as the waiter's. I repeat my words, slowly and clearly, so there can be no misunderstanding. I said, "We are going to split the bill in half." The shock on her face curdles into disbelief, then into a dark, simmering anger. The temperature at our table drops by 20 degrees. "You can't be serious," she whispers, her voice a low hiss. "I'm perfectly serious," I reply. "It was a lovely meal. I'm happy to pay for my share." "Your share?" she scoffs, her voice getting louder. People at the next table are starting to look over. "This is a date. The man pays. That's how it works." I just look at her. I don't argue. I don't raise my voice. I just let her words hang in the air. The waiter, a true professional, discreetly retreats a few feet to give us privacy. She leans forward, her eyes narrowed. This is unbelievably cheap. I have never been so embarrassed in my entire life. I decide to engage, just a little. I use her own logic. "You told me a date should be an investment, where both people are committed to the evening. This is my half of the investment. I'm assuming you're prepared to make yours." My using her own buzzwords against her seems to short-circuit her brain. She sputters for a moment, trying to find a response. That's not what I meant, and you know it. This isn't about the money. It's about the principle. It's about respect." "I agree," I say calmly. "It is about respect. You're a strong, independent woman. A girl boss, I believe you said. To assume you can't pay for your own meal would be disrespectful. I'm treating you as an equal." That's when the floodgates open. Her face turns a blotchy red. The carefully constructed facade of the sophisticated PR queen shatters into a million pieces. "An equal? You think this is equality? This is you being a cheap, insecure little man who can't handle being with a successful woman." Her voice is now loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Everyone is watching us. "You sit here all night, intimidated by my ambition, and now you pull this stunt to try and humiliate me? To put me in my place? This is toxic masculinity, right here. This is what it looks like." The accusation is so predictable, so perfectly textbook, I almost have to laugh. But I don't. I keep my composure. I wait for her to finish her tirade. She's breathing heavily, her chest heaving with righteous indignation. I give her a moment of silence. Then I signal to the waiter again. He approaches the table like a soldier walking into a minefield. I look at him, ignoring her completely. "One check for $349.50 on this card, please," I say, tapping my credit card. The waiter nods gratefully, takes my card and the folder, and hurries away to the safety of the POS terminal. She stares at me, dumbfounded. She expected an argument, a shouting match. My calm refusal to engage has completely disarmed her. She just sits there, opening and closing her mouth, but no words come out. The waiter returns a moment later with the receipt for my half of the bill. I sign it, adding a generous tip on my portion. The waiter's terrible night wasn't his fault. I push my chair back and stand up. I look down at her one last time. She looks small and lost in the big, fancy booth. "Well," I say, my voice still quiet and even, "it's been an educational evening. I wish you the best of luck with your personal brand." And with that, I turn around and walk out of the restaurant. I don't look back. I don't wait to see what happens next. I can feel the eyes of every single person in that room on my back as I walk toward the exit. I step out into the cool night air and take my first deep breath in. 3 hours. It feels like I've just escaped a high-pressure chamber. I give the valet my ticket, and while I'm waiting for my car, I take out my phone. I find the text conversation with my well-meaning friend. I type out a short message. "Hey, the date with your friend was an experience. She ordered nearly $700 worth of food and champagne, and then informed me that it was a man's job to pay. I paid for my half and left. Please do me a favor and lose my number for any future matchmaking ideas. Thanks." I hit send just as my car pulls up. I get in, start the engine, and drive away. I don't feel angry. I don't feel triumphant. I just feel a profound sense of relief. The story doesn't end there, though. I found out what happened next from our mutual friend a few weeks later. Apparently, the moment I left, my date was left sitting in stunned silence. The waiter eventually had to approach her table and delicately ask for payment for the remaining 349 cider at 50. She tried to argue. She told the waiter there must be some mistake. She claimed I was supposed to cover the whole bill. The waiter, bless his heart, just stood there and said, "The other gentleman paid his half, ma'am. The remainder is still outstanding." She apparently tried to make a scene, claiming the restaurant was trying to scam her. The manager had to come over. Faced with the manager, the waiter, and a restaurant full of staring patrons, she finally realized she had no choice. She fumbled through her tiny, impractical designer handbag for her wallet. She pulled out a credit card and handed it over with a look of pure fury. The manager ran the card. It was declined. My friend told me this part with a mix of horror and glee. Her first card was declined. She had to produce a second one, a debit card, which thankfully went through. The humiliation was complete. The moment she got out of the restaurant, she called our friend. She was screaming, crying, a complete hysterical mess. She painted a picture of me as a monster, a manipulative sociopath who had lured her into a trap just to publicly shame her. She claimed I had pretended to be a wealthy gentleman all night, only to reveal my true, cruel nature at the very end. Our friend listened to this entire, frantic performance, and then she looked at the calm, factual text message I had sent her. My story was simple and made perfect sense. Her story was a dramatic, over-the-top fantasy. When my date finally paused for breath, expecting sympathy and outrage on her behalf, our friend took a deep breath, and then she delivered the final blow. She said, "Listen, you've been telling me for months about how you're a strong, powerful, independent woman who doesn't need a man. You're always talking about your brand and how much you're worth. It sounds to me like you went on a date, ordered a very expensive meal, and then paid for it. What's the problem?" There was just dead silence on the other end of the line. My date hung up. Our friend told me she hasn't heard from her since. She's pretty sure she was blocked on everything. So that's it. That's the story of my last first date. It cost me $350 and a few hours of my life to learn a valuable lesson. Or, rather, to have a lesson I already knew confirmed in the most spectacular way possible. Some people don't want a partner. They want a sponsor. They don't want a relationship. They want a transaction. And the best thing you can do is refuse to play their game. Just pay your half and walk away.